If there is one lesson in this entire course that will determine whether you succeed or not, it's this one. Not the tools, not the AI, not the strategies you're about to learn. This. Because most people don't fail because they lack information. They fail because they don't become the kind of person who can execute consistently. And that gap between knowing and doing is mindset. This is the lesson most people skip, and it's also the exact reason most people never get results. So before we go any further, you need to understand something. This is not just another module. This is the foundation of everything. Let me be very direct with you. Mindset is not optional. You can have the best strategy, the best tools, the best AI systems. But if your thinking is not aligned with execution, you will never use them properly. And I've seen this pattern again and again. People start excited, they understand everything, and then they try. It doesn't work immediately. They feel resistance, they feel doubt, they slow down, and eventually, they stop. And in that moment, they think, maybe this doesn't work. Maybe this isn't for me. But the truth is, it was never about the strategy. It was about their ability to stay in the process. This lesson determines your ceiling. How far you go in this course and in business starts here. First warning, do not believe everything I say. Seriously. You are not here to follow someone blindly. You are here to build your own certainty. Because blind belief is fragile. The moment something doesn't work, it disappears. But when you test something, when you apply it, when you see results for yourself, that creates conviction. And conviction is stable. So question what you hear, test what you learn, observe what happens, and then decide what is true, based on your results. Second warning, skipping this lesson is not an option. Most people will skip it. They'll think, I already know this, I just want the strategy. But here's what actually happens. They go straight into execution without preparation. They try something, it doesn't work immediately, and because they're not mentally prepared, they interpret resistance as failure, so they stop. Not because it was impossible, but because they weren't equipped to continue. This lesson is what keeps you moving when results are slow, and they will be at the beginning. Third warning, motivation is not enough. Motivation feels powerful. It gives you energy. It makes you feel ready. But motivation is emotional, and emotions fluctuate. Some days you feel focused. Some days you don't. If you rely only on motivation, you will be inconsistent. And inconsistency destroys progress. Commitment is different. Commitment is a decision that stays even when the emotion disappears. It says, I continue regardless of how I feel. That's the difference. The people who succeed are not the most motivated, they are the most committed. This lesson is not here to motivate you. It's here to reprogram you. Because your results are not random. They are a reflection of how you think, the way you see money, the way you see effort, the way you see failure, the way you see yourself. All of that shapes your actions, and your actions shape your results. So if nothing changes internally, nothing changes externally. That's why we are not just learning tactics. We are upgrading your internal system. Because income does not come first. The person capable of generating it does. Let me tell you something important. Right now, you are not stuck. You are not incapable. You are not behind. You are simply operating with a system that was never designed for what you want. A system built from your environment, your past experiences, what you were told was possible, what you were told was realistic. And most people never question that system. They assume it's fixed. But it's not. It's programmable. And once you understand that, you stop trying to force results and you start upgrading the system that produces them. Let's talk about something that sounds logical, but can be very limiting. The idea of being realistic. Most people think being realistic is being intelligent, but often it's just being conditioned. Because when you were a child, you didn't think in limits. You didn't filter everything through probability. You imagined freely. You believed freely. You didn't ask, is this realistic? You asked, what if? And then, slowly, you were taught to shrink. Not intentionally, but consistently. Through school, through society, through other people's fears. You started hearing, be careful. That's not realistic. People like us don't do that. And over time, you built a ceiling. A ceiling that feels real, but isn't. Because every major result, every breakthrough, every successful person was once considered unrealistic. So let me leave you with this. What you currently call realistic might be the exact thing holding you back. And this is not about motivation. This is about awareness. Because if you don't see the limitation, you will never question it. But once you see it, you have a choice. Stay inside it or step beyond it. And everything you're about to build depends on that decision. Everyone has a reason. Everyone. Not enough time, not enough money, wrong background, wrong moment, wrong country, wrong skills. If you look at it from that perspective, everyone has a valid story. And that's important to understand, because this is not about pretending life is easy. It's not. People carry pressure. People carry responsibilities. People carry fear, insecurity, past failures. But here's the shift. The difference is not in who has problems. It's in what they do while carrying them. Your situation matters, but your response matters more. Two people can start in the same place, with the same limitations, and create completely different outcomes. Because one moves, and the other waits. Excuses don't stop reality. Life keeps moving. Whether you act or whether you don't, things continue. And this is uncomfortable, but important. While you are explaining why something won't work, someone else is figuring out how it will. While you are waiting to feel ready, someone else is already testing. And the gap between those two people starts small, but over time, it becomes massive. Because excuses feel logical, they make sense in your mind, but they don't change outcomes. Reality doesn't respond to your explanation. It responds to your actions. And that's where responsibility begins. Life doesn't pause while you figure it out. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't wait. And it doesn't adjust to your timeline. And that's not because life is against you. It's because life is indifferent. It keeps moving forward, regardless of what you do. And this is where most people get stuck. They think, I'll start when things are clearer. I'll start when I feel more confident. I'll start when I understand everything. But clarity doesn't come before movement. Clarity comes from movement. So if you wait to feel ready, you stay exactly where you are. There are 3 realities you need to accept. Not because they are comfortable, but because they are true. First, money matters. Not in a superficial way, not in a status way, but in a practical way. Money creates options. It creates freedom. It creates flexibility. Ignoring that doesn't make it disappear. Second, society has rules. Systems exist. Structures exist. And you can either ignore them or learn how they work. The people who move forward are not the ones who complain about systems. They are the ones who understand them and use them. Third, life is not always fair, and waiting for fairness is one of the most expensive things you can do. But here's the important part. Once you accept these 3 realities, everything else becomes possibility. Your beliefs are the box. Not your circumstances, not your environment, not your current situation. Your beliefs. Because beliefs define what feels possible and what feels impossible. And here's the important part. What feels impossible is not always actually impossible. It's just outside of your current belief system. Think about that. Right now, there are people doing things that you might look at and think, I could never do that. But they are doing it. So the limitation is not reality. The limitation is perception. And most of your beliefs, you didn't consciously choose them. They were installed through repetition, through your environment, through what you saw growing up, through what you heard again and again. Statements like, that's too risky. That's not for people like us. That's unrealistic. That's too hard. And after hearing those enough times, they stop sounding like opinions. They start feeling like facts. But they're not facts. They're patterns. And patterns can be changed. But first, you have to see them. Here's where it becomes even more interesting. Most people believe their limits are external. They think, I can't do this because of time, because of money, because of my situation. But in reality, most people hit internal limits first. They stop themselves before reality ever stops them. They don't even test the boundary. They assume it's there and they stay inside it. And this happens in very subtle ways. For example, someone might say, I'm not a tech person. And because they believe that, they never try. They avoid learning. They avoid experimenting. They avoid putting themselves in situations where they might grow. And over time, that belief becomes self-confirmed. Not because it was true, but because it was never challenged. And this is where people get stuck for years. Not because they lack ability, but because they protect their limitations. They defend the belief that keeps them small. And once you see that, you realize something powerful. The limit is not fixed. It's negotiated. So how do you change that? How do you expand what feels possible? Not by thinking differently first, by acting differently. Action comes before belief change. And this is where many people get it wrong. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until they feel confident. They wait until they feel sure. But that moment rarely comes. Instead, you take one small step outside your current comfort zone. Not something extreme, not something unrealistic, just slightly beyond what feels easy. And when you do that, something interesting happens. You get feedback. You get evidence. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But either way, you learn something real. And that real experience starts to rewrite what you believe. Then you take another step, and another, and another. And over time, you are no longer the same person because your identity has expanded through action. That's the loop. Action creates evidence, which reshapes identity, and identity determines what you do next. Now let's talk about risk, because this is where everything connects. Risk is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. But not the kind of risk people imagine. Not reckless, not extreme, intentional, calculated. And in this context, risk is very simple. It looks like trying something new, putting something out there, starting before you feel ready, learning something unfamiliar, taking action without guarantees. And here's the key. Most people avoid these things not because they are dangerous, but because they are uncomfortable. And that discomfort is exactly where growth begins. Because when you step into discomfort, you are stepping outside your current identity. And every time you do that, you expand what you are capable of. So risk is not the enemy. Stagnation is. Let's close this section with something very important. You don't become confident and then act. You act, and then confidence follows. This is one of the biggest misconceptions. People think they need certainty before movement, but certainty is created through movement. Think about anything you've ever learned. At the beginning, you didn't feel confident. You felt unsure. You felt slow. You felt uncomfortable. But through repetition, you improved. And through improvement, confidence appeared. The same applies here. If you wait until you feel ready, you will wait forever. But if you move, even when it's imperfect, even when it's unclear, even when it's uncomfortable, you start building momentum. And momentum changes everything. Because the people who succeed are not the ones who feel certain. They are the ones who move before certainty arrives. And that is where everything starts to change. Let's talk about something most people underestimate: attention. Because in today's world, attention is no longer just a mental skill. It's an asset, a real asset, just like money, just like time. And the problem is, most people don't treat it that way. They spend it freely, constantly, without even noticing. Every notification, every scroll, every time you check your phone for no reason, you are spending attention. And here's what makes it dangerous. You don't feel it immediately. It doesn't look like a loss. It feels normal. But over time, it fragments your ability to focus. And when your focus is fragmented, your results are fragmented. Because where your attention goes, your results follow. So the real question is not, do I have time? The real question is, where is my attention going every single day? Now let's go deeper, because the problem is not just distraction. It's fragmentation. Your mind is constantly being pulled in different directions. You start something, then you check your phone. You come back, but your focus is not the same. Then another distraction, another interruption. And every time that happens, your brain resets. You lose momentum. You lose depth. You lose clarity. And here's the part most people don't realize. It's not just time you lose. It's energy. Mental energy. The kind of energy you need to think clearly, to create, to solve problems, to execute at a high level. So when your attention is constantly interrupted, you don't just become slower, you become less effective. And that's why people feel like they're busy all day, but still not moving forward. Because their attention is not protected. Now let's make this real. Let's talk about time. Not the time you see, but the time you don't notice slipping away. Think about your average day. Small moments, checking your phone, scrolling for a few minutes, switching between tasks. Individually, they seem insignificant, but they accumulate. And over time, they become hours. Hours per day, days per month, weeks per year. And this is where the shift happens. Because the same way distraction compounds, discipline compounds. If you redirect even a fraction of that time into focused work, into learning, into building, your trajectory changes completely. So this is not about perfection. It's about awareness. Because once you see where your time is going, you can choose differently. Now let's talk about something powerful. Flow. This is the closest thing to a real-life superpower. Not because it's magical, but because of what it allows you to do. Flow is a state where you are fully immersed in what you're doing. No distractions, no resistance. Just focus. Time feels different. Sometimes it slows down, sometimes it disappears. And your performance increases naturally. You think faster, you create better, you execute more efficiently. And the important part is this: flow is not random. It's not something that just happens. It's something you can create. And once you learn how to access it, your output changes completely. What does flow actually feel like? Because most people have experienced it, but they don't recognize it. It's that moment when you're working on something and everything clicks. You're not forcing it. You're not overthinking. You're just doing. Ideas connect faster. Decisions feel easier. Effort feels lighter. And suddenly, what would normally take you hours takes you a fraction of that time. This is where real progress happens. Not in scattered effort, but in deep, uninterrupted focus. And the difference between someone who moves fast and someone who stays stuck is often this state. So what blocks flow? Because this is where most people lose access to it. The biggest blocker is fragmentation. Starting your day with your phone, constant notifications, multitasking, jumping between things. And here's what happens. Your brain becomes used to stimulation, quick hits of dopamine, constant novelty. And when that happens, deep work feels uncomfortable, boring, difficult. So instead of focusing, you seek distraction. And this creates a loop. More distraction, less focus. Less focus, more frustration. And over time, you lose the ability to go deep. That's why protecting your attention is not optional. Flow doesn't just happen. You have to prepare for it. Your body, your mind, your environment all need to support it. If you're tired, your focus drops. If you're dehydrated, your clarity drops. If your environment is chaotic, your attention follows. And if your mind is overloaded, you can't go deep. So preparation matters. Simple things: sleep, movement, water, a clean space, clear intention. These are not small details. They are the foundation of performance. Because before you try to do better work, you need to create the conditions that allow it. Now, there are triggers for flow, and they are very specific. First, you need a clear objective. If you don't know what you're doing, your mind drifts. Second, you need feedback. You need to see progress. You need to know if what you're doing is working. And third, you need the right level of challenge. Not too easy, not too hard. Because if it's too easy, you get bored. If it's too hard, you get overwhelmed. But in the middle, that's where flow happens. So the goal is not just to work, but to work at the right level. Flow is not instant. It's not something you switch on and suddenly everything works. Flow is a cycle, and understanding that cycle changes how you approach your work. Because most people expect things to feel smooth from the beginning. They expect clarity immediately. They expect focus immediately. They expect momentum immediately. And when they don't feel that, they assume something is wrong. But nothing is wrong. They're just in the first phase, the struggle. The struggle phase is where everything feels slow. You sit down to work, and your mind resists. You feel distracted. You feel unfocused. You feel like you're not making progress. And this is where most people stop. They think, I'm not in the mood. This isn't working. I'll do it later. But what they don't realize is that this phase is necessary. It's part of the process. If you stay in it, if you don't escape it, something starts to shift. That's the second phase. Release. Your brain starts adapting. Your focus starts stabilizing. Things begin to feel slightly easier. Then comes the third phase. Deep focus. This is where everything changes. You are fully immersed. Your attention is locked in. You're not thinking about distractions anymore. You're not forcing yourself to work. You are inside the work. And this is where real output happens. This is where clarity happens. This is where ideas connect. This is where progress accelerates. But even this state doesn't last forever, because then comes the fourth phase, recovery. Your brain needs to reset. It needs to process. It needs to recharge. And this is where balance matters, because if you ignore recovery, you burn out. But if you understand the cycle, you stop expecting perfection. You stop judging the struggle. You stop quitting early. And this is the key insight. Most people never reach deep focus because they quit in the struggle phase. They never stay long enough to cross the threshold. But once you understand this, you approach your work differently. You sit down, and instead of expecting it to feel easy, you expect the struggle. And because you expect it, you don't run from it. You move through it. And that is what allows you to access flow consistently. Now, this is where everything comes together. Because everything you've seen in this lesson leads to one point: a decision. Not a strategy, not a tactic, a decision. There are two types of commitment: partial and full. Partial commitment feels safe. It says, I'll try. I'll see how it goes. I'll do it if it works quickly. It keeps options open. It avoids pressure. It allows you to step back the moment things become uncomfortable. And because of that, it produces average results. Now compare that to full commitment. Full commitment is different. It doesn't say, I'll try. It says, I will figure this out, no matter how long it takes, no matter how many attempts it requires, no matter how uncomfortable it feels. Full commitment removes the exit. It removes the option of quitting. It changes how you respond to obstacles. Because now, failure is not a signal to stop. It's part of the process. And this is where identity shifts, because someone who is partially committed looks for reasons to stop, but someone who is fully committed looks for ways to continue. Same obstacles, different response, different outcome. So now, the question is simple. Which version are you choosing to be? Because the results you want are not created by the person you are right now. They are created by the version of you that is willing to go further, to stay longer, to push through resistance. And that version doesn't appear automatically. It's built through decisions. So this is your moment. Not tomorrow, not later, now. You either stay where you are or you step into something different, and everything changes. The moment you decide that you're no longer negotiating with your own potential. Now take a moment before moving on. Don't rush into the next lesson just yet. Pause and reflect. What actually changed for you? What idea stayed with you? What belief feels different now? And most importantly, what are you going to do with it? Because this only creates value if you apply it. Even something small, one decision, one action, that's where change begins. So take something from this and move with it. I'll see you in the next lesson.